I had just moved into this old apartment building on a dark downtown street. The exterior of the apartment was dilapidated. The walls were mottled, and the window frames were peeling paint, as if it had never been repaired. Even during the day, the deserted street downstairs was always empty, and the occasional passerby hurried with no expression on his face. Whenever I looked out of the window, the scene in front of me was always covered with a layer of haze, as if the place were forever shrouded. On the first day I moved in, the staircase smelled of damp mildew. The elevator was old and often broken, and the stairs were badly worn and creaking. Whenever I walked into this gloomy staircase, I always felt a cold breath coming from a certain direction, and the feeling of suffocation made me dare not stay in the staircase for too long. Loneliness is strongest at night. Standing in front of the window, watching the night rush in like a tide, I always felt like a bug trapped in a whirlpool, ready to be swallowed up at any moment. When night fell, the dead silence of the corridor, even the ticking of the clock, made me feel anxious. I was sitting alone in the living room late one night, the light of the TV screen flickering in the dim room. I put all my distractions aside for a while and tried to relax myself. Suddenly, the phone rang, breaking the silence, harsh and abrupt. My heart skipped a beat, and I was stunned for a second before answering the phone. "Hello," I said softly, trying to contain my unease. At the other end of the phone came a woman's deep cry, her voice broken and desperate. The sadness and pain made me frown, and my heart beat faster. I tried to ask something, but she just kept crying and didn't respond. I took a deep breath, thinking maybe it was just a prank. So I pressed the callback button. The phone line was busy beep and couldn't connect. A minute later, the phone rang again. My palms were already sweating. My heart was racing. My eyes were fixed on the screen, and I waited with bated breath. After the phone was connected, a man's deep voice came. "Can you hear her voice? She's right next to you." My heart sank suddenly. The voice was so low that it was almost a whisper, but every word seemed to echo in my head. Creepy. I suddenly felt the air around me become heavy, as if countless eyes were staring at me in the darkness. I couldn't help but get up and look around, but saw nothing. There was no sound on the phone. I hung up the phone, took a deep breath, and tried to calm myself down. However, the unease in my heart continued to spread, and I began to wonder if my ears were wrong. After a few minutes, my heartbeat gradually returned to normal, and I picked up the phone to try to dial the police number again. But the phone could not be connected again. The signal bar on the screen kept flashing, as if mocking my powerlessness. Just as I was about to give up, I suddenly heard a slight rustling sound outside the window. I turned back sharply and looked through the gap in the curtains. The street was silent at night, except for the faint flickering of distant street lamps. But in the dimmest part of the light, I saw a vague figure. A figure stood quietly at the end of the street, with his back to me. The outline of the figure was blurry, as if it had been swallowed up by the night. My heart beat faster again, and I couldn't help but look out the window, my eyes almost pressed against the glass. But I still couldn't see the image clearly. "Who is it?" I whispered to myself. Suddenly, the figure turned, and I could see clearly that it was a pale face with hollow eyes staring straight at me. My body was stiff, and my legs were like lead, unable to move. I had never seen that face, but I could feel an indescribable terror. Just then, the phone rang again. I picked it up almost reflexively, but instead of a woman crying or a man whispering, I heard a low, indistinct voice. "She saw you." The phone hung up. My brain was in chaos. My limbs were cold. The figure outside the window had disappeared, but the inexplicable fear still hovered in my heart. Without thinking, I picked up my phone and dialed the police number. But the phone screen was still busy, and the phone could never be connected. Just then, the doorbell rang suddenly. I was stunned. No one knows I live here, so why would someone ring the doorbell? The doorbell rang for a few seconds, as if urging me to open the door. I felt an irresistible urge, my heart beating wildly. I walked slowly to the door, palms covered in cold sweat. Standing in front of the door, I took a deep breath and grabbed the handle with trembling hands. The moment I opened the door, I could barely breathe. Outside the door stood a woman with a pale face and deep eyes, as if she had not seen the sun for a long time. She was wearing a long, shabby white dress with a lifeless expression on her face, her lips slightly parted, and she whispered, "She said you would call for help." My brain completely broke down. That face seemed to appear in every dream of mine, the voice I had heard on the phone. I couldn't move. The world in front of me began to blur, and my heart seemed to be held tightly by a cold hand. Suddenly, a gust of cold wind blew. I closed my eyes, and when I opened them again, the woman at the door was gone. I hurried downstairs and looked around, but found no trace. When I got back to my apartment, I found an unfamiliar number on the phone screen. It flickered in the dark, as if to remind me, this is not the end. I began to remember the mysterious disappearances that had taken place in the apartment building. A few years earlier, a young woman had disappeared from the building and had never been seen again. Her disappearance was said to be related to the building's curse. Those who disappeared would receive a strange phone call one night, hear the cries and whispers of women, and they would all disappear one night. I looked out the window, and the darkness still hung over the city. I realized that I might have been caught in this cycle of reincarnation that I couldn't escape.